Unaware his wife belonged to a secret billionaire family, husband abandoned his 9 months pregnant wife to starve for his wealthy boss. What she did next made him regret it forever. He didn't just abandon her. He walked out of their tiny apartment with a suitcase in his hand, Sabrina's perfume still clinging to his shirt, and left his 9 months pregnant wife standing alone beside an almost empty fridge, while he moved into his wealthy boss's home, chasing status that would never save him. That same night, Emily Parker's body finally gave in. She collapsed on her kitchen floor from hunger, weakness, and exhaustion. She had been surviving on tap water and stretching every last can of food to protect the baby inside her, while the man she loved was laughing in restaurants, drinking expensive wine, and letting another woman rest her hand on his arm. Her husband thought she was powerless. He thought she'd cut herself off from her distant parents for good, that she had no access to their money, no one she could call, no safety net left. He thought she would wait quietly while he built his new life. What he never imagined was this. The wife he abandoned to starve came from a secret billionaire family that had been respecting her, wished to live as an ordinary woman, but watching over her from a distance. A family with investigators, lawyers, and enough power to destroy every lie he built with one courtroom hearing. And when Emily opened her eyes in that private hospital suite, with her mother at her bedside, her father reviewing evidence, and photos of Aaron with Sabrina pulled up on a screen, something inside her changed forever. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you're watching without subscribing, it's like letting Emily's voice fade in the same silence she suffered alone. When you subscribe, you stand with every woman abandoned, every mother left behind, and every quiet soul planning the comeback they deserve. Please subscribe now and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Emily Parker froze in place as a sharp cramp tore through her swollen belly, forcing her hand to clamp the edge of the kitchen counter before she collapsed. Her breath hitched, her face pale, her other hand instinctively cradling the 9-month-old life inside her. For a moment, the tiny apartment blurred. The intensity hit her first, raw, sudden, uninvited, like her body warning her that time was running out. When the pain eased, she let out a trembling breath and whispered, "Just not yet, not alone." Emily was 31, soft-spoken, patient, the kind of woman who apologized when she wasn't wrong and smiled to avoid worrying others. Everything about her, her gentle eyes, her careful steps, her warm presence, felt like she had been crafted by life to love quietly. But today her quietness carried exhaustion. She lowered herself slowly into the small living room, the space glowing with the soft afternoon light. On the couch beside her sat a basket of tiny baby clothes she had been folding one by one. She lifted a pair of pale yellow booties, her fingers brushing over the fabric with a tenderness that belonged to women who loved deeply and without hesitation. She hummed to keep her nerves steady, but the sound trembled at the edges. Emily had once lived in a world where nothing trembled. Before she became Emily Parker, she had been Emily Hawthorne, the only daughter of a powerful, private, generational family whose last name alone opened doors. She grew up in gated estates, surrounded by staff who never forgot to bow, and parents who rarely forgot their meetings, but often forgot her birthdays. Her inheritance, shares in several companies, investments, trust funds, had been mapped out for her since birth. But when she turned 22, she had done something no one expected. She legally changed her last name, moved out of the Hawthorne estate, and signed papers that put her trust funds under strict conditions she couldn't touch without returning to that world. Her parents had begged her to at least keep an emergency card, an open line, some form of help. Emily said no. She didn't want a life where affection felt scheduled and conversations felt rehearsed. She wanted something real, something honest. And Aaron Parker had appeared exactly when she needed softness. He was 28 when they met, handsome in a boyish way, confident but not arrogant, ambitious but sweet. Or so she believed. He worked as a junior assistant for a wealthy businessman and made Emily laugh with effortless charm. He called her bright eyes and told her she made the world look softer. He never pushed about her past. When she said she was estranged from strict parents and preferred not to talk about them, he didn't ask more. He only knew her as Emily Parker, a woman who wanted a simple life. She ran from the wealth she once knew with open arms and a full heart, choosing Aaron and a small rented apartment over the cold luxury of her childhood. She traded marble floors for cheap wooden ones, staff for silence, and formal dinners for home-cooked meals she made with love. Yes, she had walked away from everything that could have made life easy, but she believed she had gained something far better, a home built on love. Now folding baby clothes alone in a dim apartment, she wondered if she had been wrong. Her eyes drifted across the room until they landed on a framed picture resting on the small bookshelf. It showed her standing between two elegant older people, her parents. The tension in her shoulders tightened. She reached out, touched the frame, as though greeting a stranger, and then quickly set it face down again. Her fingertips brushed the drawer below the shelf. Inside lay a single envelope from her mother, the last attempt her family made to reach her 2 years ago, forwarded by an old friend who still knew where she lived. In delicate handwriting, the front read, "Open when you're ready." Inside, Emily knew, was not money, but contact details, a private number, an offer of help if she ever changed her mind. Emily had never been ready. She pushed up slowly, returning to the basket of clothes. The delicate fabrics brought her comfort. She traced each seam, imagining tiny hands, tiny feet, tiny breaths. The baby was the one thing that kept her steady, gave her purpose, made the loneliness bearable. She tried not to think about Aaron, but the truth pressed against her chest. She was 9 months pregnant. She was alone, and her husband hadn't come home in 2 days. He had left with the excuse of work, the same excuse that had become his shield, his weapon, his favorite escape. His boss demanded more hours, more loyalty, more availability. And lately, Aaron had started pleasing that boss far more than caring for his own wife. Emily paused mid-fold, her hands trembling again. Not from contraction this time, but from the slow, painful understanding that she might not matter to him the way she once believed. A sudden throb pulsed in her stomach again. She winced, gripping the arm of the couch. "Please." "Not yet," she whispered, breath shallow. "He's not home." The pain eased, but fear lingered, heavy and cold. At that moment, a soft buzzing came from the kitchen table. Aaron's company phone vibrating where he had forgotten it 2 nights ago. His personal phone, the one he used to text her, working late, was with him. But this one, the office line, had been left behind, face down beside a glass of water. Emily stared at it, a cold chill settling over her spine. Something told her that whatever was on that phone would hurt far more than the contractions. And as she reached for it slowly, the pain inside her belly tightened again. Another warning, another countdown. She didn't know it yet, but the messages and missed calls on that forgotten phone were tied to the long nights he'd been spending in rooms she had never seen, with people who never even knew she existed. A quiet shadow passed through her thoughts, whispering that Aaron's world was about to reveal itself piece by devastating piece. Aaron Parker slammed the heavy office door behind him so hard the glass trembled. His breath came in tight bursts, anger flashing across his face. Moments earlier, his boss, Mr. Leonard Dalton, had publicly humiliated another employee for not meeting expectations. Aaron had watched the entire scene from the back of the room, sweat on his palms, fear tightening around his ribs like a vice. And now that fear pulsed inside him, driving him into a state he barely recognized. This was how things had been for months now. Long hours, sharp words, and the constant threat of being the next one crushed. Mr. Dalton was a man in his mid-50s with sharp eyes, expensive taste, and a talent for breaking those who disappointed him. He owned 3 companies, 4 luxury cars, and carried himself like nothing in the world could touch him. The office worshipped him. Aaron worshipped him too, though he would never dare say it out loud. He wanted Dalton's approval the way some men wanted oxygen. Inside the private lounge, a place only select employees were allowed, Aaron stood still, shoulders tense. His heart pounded with a mix of excitement and terror. The room smelled of leather and expensive cologne, and gold decor gleamed from every corner. It was wealth wrapped in luxury, the kind Aaron had never tasted at any point in his life. Mr. Dalton sat on a velvet sofa, a glass of dark liquor in hand, speaking with practiced confidence. Beside him lounged Sabrina Hayes, a striking woman in her late 20s, long dark hair, red lips, and a smile that could cut. She worked as Dalton's consultant, though everyone in the building understood her true role, his mistress and silent enforcer of influence. She leaned against Dalton with casual possession, her hand resting lightly on his knee. Sabrina noticed Aaron the moment he entered. Her eyes traveled from his rumpled shirt to his nervous posture, and a hint of amusement crossed her face. Dalton smirked. "Come in, Aaron. You look like you just watched someone get crushed. Sit." Aaron obeyed quickly. Dalton raised his glass and said, "This is what success looks like, son. Comfort, options, power." He gestured to the room around him, and then to Sabrina. "And the right company." Sabrina crossed one leg over the other, deliberately slow. "Mr. Dalton was just telling me about the new position opening soon. A position for someone loyal." Aaron's breath caught. A promotion, a real one. The kind that came with prestige and financial security. The kind that could make him feel like a man who mattered. Not just a man scrambling to pay rent and baby expenses. Dalton continued, voice steady and cutting. "But men who rise don't drag dead weight with them." Aaron flinched. The words hit him deeper than Dalton realized. Or maybe Dalton knew exactly where to aim. Because Aaron had always come from nothing. He had grown up in an average family, struggled through average jobs, lived an average life. He had married for love, yes. But sometimes love felt heavy. Bills felt heavier. With a baby on the way and Emily on unpaid leave from her job, the weight on his shoulders felt suffocating. Dalton took a slow drink. "Your wife is, what, 9 months along now?" Aaron nodded stiffly. Sabrina laughed softly. "So much responsibility. That must be exhausting." Aaron didn't respond, but the seed planted itself in his thoughts. Small, poisonous, growing. Dalton leaned forward. "A man's value is judged by how high he can climb. If you want real success, Aaron, you must learn how to prioritize." Aaron swallowed, throat tight. He saw in quick flashes memories of his early marriage. Him kissing Emily's forehead every morning before work. Her smiling as she packed his lunch. Late-night dreams about a simple home, a safe life, a family built from love. But the warmth of those memories was drowned out by the glitter surrounding him now. Luxury, approval, status, everything he felt he deserved, yet never had. Sabrina moved closer, her voice smooth as silk. "You'd go far if you weren't tied down." Aaron's breath froze. She touched his sleeve lightly. Just enough for him to feel the suggestion, the temptation, the promise of a life where he wasn't struggling to be enough. Her words echoed in his ears. Tied down. His wife, his unborn child, the cramped apartment, the unpaid bills stacked in the kitchen drawer. The life he once wanted suddenly felt like a chain he couldn't escape. Aaron folded his hands tightly, trying to hide the tremor in them. Dalton smirked knowingly. "Think about what you want, Aaron. Men like me recognize ambition." And in that moment, something in Aaron shifted, quietly, dangerously. The man who once dreamed of a loving home was pushed aside by someone who wanted to climb, no matter what he had to leave behind. Sabrina leaned closer, her lips near his ear. "You don't have to stay ordinary." A chill ran down Aaron's spine. Outside the lounge door, unseen by all of them, Mr. Dalton's assistant slipped a folder into the office mailbox. Formal documents for a special assignment. A new role, higher pay, and an invitation to move into Dalton's guest wing so he could be close to work. Documents that would soon push Aaron even deeper into his transformation. Emily jerked awake to the sound of a plate shattering. Her heart pounded, her breath sharp. For one terrifying moment, she thought something terrible had happened to the baby. But no, the pain inside her chest wasn't physical. It was emotional. The plate had slipped from her trembling hands and crashed onto the floor. On the table beside her sat a full dinner. Her effort, her love, her hope, now cold, untouched, and waiting for a man who wasn't coming home. Her phone buzzed again. She already knew what it would say. Aaron, on her screen, working late. "Don't wait up." The words cut her deeper every time. She read them again as if they might change, as if this time he might add, "I miss you, I love you, I'm coming home soon." But the message stayed short, cold, empty, like a door shutting in her heart. Emily lowered herself into the chair, one hand on her belly, one hand covering her face. The silence in the apartment pressed on her like a weight. Even the clock ticked louder, reminding her of every minute she spent alone. She whispered to herself, "You said I was enough." Her voice broke. For a moment she let the tears come, quiet, tired tears that soaked into her palms. She didn't cry loudly. She never did. Emily had learned as a child that loud emotions had no place in a mansion filled with people who cared about appearances more than feelings. Her mind drifted into a memory, a flashback painted in soft gold and cold edges. She saw herself as a young girl, walking through endless hallways of her parents' grand estate. The walls were covered with expensive art, crystal chandeliers hung from the ceilings, and her footsteps echoed because there was no one around to answer them. She remembered trying to show her mother a drawing she had made. Her mother had smiled politely, nodded, and said, "Beautiful, darling," without looking up from her phone. Her father had patted her head as if she were a guest child visiting, then returned to his business calls. Love had been present in the house, but it had been distant, present only in words, not actions. Emily didn't want that life. She didn't want emptiness wrapped in gold. She wanted a hand to hold, a voice to reassure her, a partner who saw her as more than an accessory. So she chose Aaron. She chose simple walls, simple meals, simple dreams. She chose a man who once held her as if she were the only thing in the world that mattered. But now those memories felt like stories from another lifetime. Aaron came home less, smiled less, touched her less. He had become someone she barely recognized, someone distracted, ambitious, hungry for something she could not name. She lifted her phone again, staring at the message. Working late. The lie stung not because he said it, but because he didn't even try to hide how often he used it anymore. She placed a hand on her belly and whispered gently, "It's okay, Mommy's here. I'll keep us safe." Her stomach tightened again, not a full contraction, but enough to remind her that she couldn't afford to break down. She needed rest, she needed strength, and she needed— The thought vanished. The doorbell rang. Emily froze. Hope flickered in her eyes for one foolish second. Aaron. Did he surprise her? Did he come home after all? She pushed herself up, one hand gripping the table for support. She walked slowly to the door, heart trembling with a mix of fear and longing. She opened it. It wasn't Aaron. It was Mrs. Turner, the kind elderly neighbor from across the hall. She held 2 bags of groceries in her hands, her warm, concerned eyes scanning Emily instantly. "Sweetheart, you didn't answer your phone. I called twice," she said, her voice soft but urgent. "I heard a plate break. I was worried. You need food. You need help." Emily forced a tiny smile. Shame and gratitude blended painfully in her chest. "I'm okay," Emily whispered automatically. Mrs. Turner shook her head. "No, you're not. I know what an empty fridge sounds like when someone keeps opening it and closing it." Emily's eyes dropped to the grocery bags. Pasta, bread, fruit, soup. Basic things. Essential things. Things her husband should have brought home. "I can pay you back when Aaron's next paycheck comes in," Emily murmured. Mrs. Turner's face softened. "You'll pay me back by staying alive to raise that baby. That's enough." Emily stepped aside to let the neighbor in, her heart tightening, not from the baby, not from pain, but from the realization that strangers cared more for her than the man she had married. As Mrs. Turner set the groceries down and filled a few shelves, she spoke gently. "If you ever need to call anyone, use my phone, okay? Or the emergency number on your fridge. Don't sit here alone." Emily nodded. But her eyes slipped away from the fridge magnets and landed, for a brief second, on the drawer where her mother's sealed envelope lay hidden. She quickly looked away. As Mrs. Turner finished, Emily felt another sharp throb in her belly. Not a contraction, something else. Something warning her that Aaron's distance was not an accident, but a choice. And far away, in an office she had never seen, the choices Aaron made on nights like this were pulling him further from her than ever before. Aaron's heart slammed against his ribs the moment the bar door opened. He hadn't expected this noise, this heat, this rush of luxury wrapped in dim lights and polished marble. The private bar belonged to Mr. Dalton, his boss and the man who ruled his career like a king. Tonight, Dalton had summoned him personally. That alone was enough to make Aaron feel his pulse in his throat, but intensity struck the moment his eyes landed on her, Sabrina Hayes, the woman every employee whispered about, the one who could make Dalton's anger soften with a tilt of her head, the one who closed deals by simply walking into a room. She sat beside Dalton at the long bar, her posture confident, her smile slow and dangerous. Sabrina's presence hit Aaron like a wave, sharp, bold, and impossible to ignore. "Aaron," Dalton said, lifting his glass. "Good, sit." Aaron obeyed immediately, sliding onto the stool opposite Sabrina. His palms were already sweating. Sabrina leaned in before he even settled. "Rough week?" she asked, her voice smooth as velvet. Her perfume, subtle, floral, expensive, wrapped around him. Her hand reached for his, guiding it gently onto the bar. Her fingers lingered. Every part of the moment was wrong, and every part of it pulled him in. Dalton watched with the expression of a man who enjoyed testing people. "You're ambitious, Aaron. That's why I like you." Sabrina took a slow sip of her drink, eyes fixed on Aaron over the rim of her glass. "An ambition," she said softly, "needs the right company." Aaron's jaw tightened. He thought of Emily, sweet, patient Emily, waiting at home with dinner going cold. He thought of their cramped apartment, the stress in her eyes, the baby coming soon. He should have thought of love, but instead he thought of pressure. He thought of the promotion Dalton had hinted at in the lounge. He thought of the folder with new position papers that he had taken home and signed without reading every page, just grateful for the raise. Sabrina tapped a manicured nail on the bar. "You seem nervous." Aaron cleared his throat. "It's just a lot. New responsibilities. Dalton's expectations." Dalton chuckled. "Responsibilities can lift you up or drown you. Depends on what you hold on to." The words sliced deeper than they should have. Aaron took a shaky breath. "I only want to prove myself. For my family, too." Sabrina turned fully toward him. Her posture changed. More intimate, more intentional. "Then stop acting like someone afraid of wanting more?" He stared at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She leaned closer, her lips near his ear. "Men with families move slower. Men with attachments hesitate." Attachments, the word echoed. In one swift moment, everything inside Aaron twisted. His pride, his fear, his insecurity. He felt small and average and behind in life. Sabrina's voice kept feeding that part of him. "You deserve to be around people who can elevate you," she whispered. Dalton smirked, watching the scene with satisfaction. He knew Sabrina's purpose. She was his favorite because she could read people and reach their weak points with surgical precision. She turned Aaron's hand gently, lifting it palm up, inspecting him as if reading something written on his skin. Then her eyes dropped, straight to his wedding ring. "Ah," she said softly, her tone shifting. "So that's why you look so conflicted." Aaron instinctively pulled his hand back a little, but she held it just long enough to make the message clear. She wasn't intimidated by it. Dalton swirled his drink. "Some women elevate men," he said casually. "Others drag them down. They keep them small, dependent, ordinary." The words landed like a stone inside Aaron's chest. He heard them. He absorbed them. He let them settle into his thoughts where they took root like poison. Sabrina's fingers brushed the ring again. "You should take that off," she murmured, voice low and dangerous. "At least when you're here, it sends the wrong signal." Aaron's breath froze. She smiled, a slow, tempting smile. "If you want to sit with us, if you want Dalton to trust you, if you want to live in his world, you can't keep acting like you still live in hers." His hand trembled. Very slowly, he slid the ring off his finger and slipped it into his pocket. He told himself it was just for tonight, that it didn't mean anything, that Emily would never know. Dalton lifted his glass again. "That's better." And far away, in a small apartment filled with cold food and lonely silence, Emily shifted in her sleep, one hand resting on her belly. She didn't know why, but she woke up with a faint ache beneath her ribs, a warning she couldn't explain, a warning that something inside her husband had just shifted in a way she might not recognize anymore. The door slammed open with such force that Emily flinched, nearly dropping the glass of water she was holding. Her breath caught. Her heart stumbled. For one brief, foolish moment, she thought Aaron had come home worried about her, but the look on his face crushed that hope instantly. Aaron stood in the doorway, shoulders stiff, eyes cold, jaw locked like he had already decided something before he walked in. His movements were sharp, too sharp, like a man who had reached a conclusion he didn't want questioned. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't look at her belly. He didn't greet her at all. He simply walked past her, grabbed his suitcase from under the bed, and opened it. Emily blinked. Aaron, what's wrong? Why are you packing? He didn't answer immediately. He folded his shirts with mechanical precision, avoiding eye contact. The intensity in the room thickened until her throat tightened with dread. Finally, he muttered, "I'm moving in with Mr. Dalton." Emily stared at him, stunned. Moving in? Why? What happened? Aaron zipped the suitcase halfway and straightened, his expression cold and distant. Work. The new position. Dalton wants me close to the house for a while. There's a guest room. It's part of the job. Her voice broke. But I'm about to give birth. You haven't been home. He cut her off with a sharp exhale. Emily, please don't make this harder. This is temporary. Dalton said if I commit fully now, it'll pay off later. For both of us. Temporary. He said it so casually, as if leaving his 9-month pregnant wife alone was nothing more than a short business trip. Emily stepped closer, hand trembling against her belly. Aaron, I need you. The baby could come any day. You promised you'd be here. We planned this together. You said... He looked annoyed. You'll be fine. Mrs. Turner checks on you. You're strong. You've handled everything so far. Her chest tightened as if someone squeezed the air out of her. That wasn't a compliment. It was an excuse. He wasn't staying because he didn't want to. Aaron grabbed his wallet from the dresser, pulling out the debit card linked to his new salary account, the one he had quietly shifted most of their money into. Emily reached out instinctively. Wait, why are you taking that? I need groceries. The doctor's appointment. It's better if I manage the finances, he snapped. I can't have you spending without thinking right now. I'll transfer something next week if I can. Her hand fell, her heart dropping with it. She had always been careful with money. She had stretched every paycheck. She had let her own small savings disappear first when she stopped working. Yet now he acted like she was some kind of burden. He shoved the card into his pocket and slung the suitcase over his shoulder. If I impress Mr. Dalton, we'll finally be somebody. Don't you want that? Emily stared at him, horrified. I never wanted someone important. I wanted you. He didn't flinch. He didn't soften. Instead, he walked past her toward the door. That was when she smelled it, faint but undeniable. A scent that wasn't hers, perfume, floral, sweet. The same perfume lingering on Sabrina Hayes' skin the night he had come home late from drinks with the team, and she'd seen the name Sabrina flash on his phone before he tilted it away. Emily froze, the world spinning slightly. Sabrina. That woman had been too close, too confident, too connected to Mr. Dalton, and now too present on her husband's clothes. Emily's voice trembled. Aaron, why do you smell like perfume? He stiffened for a split second, but he recovered quickly. Sabrina hugged everyone when Dalton gave the team speech. He lied smoothly. You're imagining things. You're stressed. She wasn't, but she was too heartbroken, too overwhelmed, too pregnant to fight the way she wanted to. She pressed a hand to her head to stop it from spinning. Aaron placed his hand on the doorknob. You'll be fine, he repeated. There's still some food from Mrs. Turner. I'll send money when I can. Just trust me on this, okay? Don't call Dalton. Don't make this look messy. Her voice rose in panic. No, Aaron, don't go. Please don't leave me alone like this. I feel strange. I think... But he was already stepping out, already pulling away as if nothing she said could reach him. Emily's throat tightened painfully. She stumbled after him, gripping the doorframe. Aaron, I think the baby is coming soon. He didn't turn. He didn't pause. He pretended not to hear. The door closed with a final, hollow thud that echoed through the apartment like a goodbye she never wanted. Emily stood frozen, her hands still outstretched toward the empty hallway. Her heart felt like it cracked in two, and the apartment suddenly felt colder, darker, smaller, Her breath hitched as another tightening pulse rolled through her stomach. Not quite a contraction, not yet, but close, too close. And as she leaned against the wall, trying to steady herself, a quiet realization whispered through her mind, one she didn't want to accept. The real danger wasn't the baby coming early. It was what Aaron was about to do next. Far away from home, in a house where Sabrina's perfume and Dalton's promises would wrap around him while she fought to survive alone. The hunger hit her like a punch. Emily clutched the edge of the kitchen counter as her knees nearly buckled. A wave of dizziness crashed over her so hard that spots filled her vision. Her breath trembled, her heart thudded weakly, and a cold sweat broke across her forehead. She had felt tired before, but this was different. This felt like her body was giving up. She forced herself upright, one hand on her belly, the other bracing against the counter. The fridge door hung open beside her, the inside light glowing over shelves that were completely empty. Not a drop of milk, not a slice of bread, not even leftovers. She had stretched what little food she had for days. First her own savings, then the groceries Mrs. Turner brought, then the last can of soup she'd watered down to make it stretch for 2 days. She had eaten smaller and smaller portions so the baby could have enough. But tonight, there was nothing left. Aaron hadn't transferred the money he promised. The card he took was still with him. Her message asking, "Did the transfer go through?" sat on, seen, unanswered. Her stomach twisted painfully. To stop the nausea, she dragged herself to the sink and filled a glass with tap water. The cold liquid soothed her throat but did nothing for the heaviness in her limbs. She drank another glass, and another. Finally, she slid into a chair, holding her belly as if her arms alone could protect the life inside her. Her mind drifted unwillingly into the past. She saw herself standing in the grand dining hall of her childhood home, marble floors and chandelier crystals sparkling around her. There had always been more food than anyone could eat, buffets of dishes lined up for business dinners and charity events. Yet she had eaten most of her meals alone, taking her plate to a quiet corner because her parents were always hosting or in meetings. She had been 22 the day she told them she was leaving the Hawthorne family estate, leaving the private drivers, the gated security, the generational wealth, leaving a life most people dreamed of. Her parents had stared at her as if she'd announced she was disappearing off the earth. "Emily," her mother had said, voice sharp with fear, "that boy is not ready for the burden of a powerful family." Her father had added, "He'll break under pressure. He already looks like he's struggling with his own." But Emily had been in love. She had seen Aaron's smiles, his warmth, his humble dreams, and she believed he loved her for who she truly was, not the name she carried. So she walked away, from money, from power, from every safety net. She even insisted her trust be locked, refusing an emergency card because she wanted to stand on her own. She thought love would be enough. But tonight, sitting alone with a pounding headache in an empty fridge, she felt the weight of that decision crushing her from inside out. A sharp pain hit her abdomen. She gasped and bent forward, gripping the table. "Please," she whispered, tears forming. "Not tonight. Not like this." The apartment felt colder, quieter, smaller. Emily tried to stand, but her legs trembled beneath her. She made it 2 steps before her vision blurred again. Her hand slipped from the table. The dizziness returned like a dark wave. Her phone vibrated on the counter. Her own phone. The one she had stubbornly refused to change so her parents wouldn't easily reach her. Now it lay just out of reach. She took one more step, then her knees gave out. Her body hit the floor with a dull thud. Her head struck the tile. The phone slipped from the counter, crashing beside her. The screen cracked instantly, lines spreading like a spiderweb across the glass. Emily blinked, barely conscious. Her breathing slowed. Her hand reached weakly toward the phone, touching it with the tips of her fingers before her arm fell limp beside her. The phone buzzed again. The cracked screen flickered, glitching. The damaged interface auto-accepted the incoming call. A name appeared faintly through the fractured glass. Mother, a soft rustling sound came from the phone's speaker. Then a woman's voice, elegant, concerned, and unmistakably familiar, filled the quiet apartment. "Emily? Emily, are you there?" Emily couldn't respond. She was too weak. fading in and out of awareness. Her mother's voice grew sharper. "Emily, I can hear breathing. Something is wrong." More rustling, a distant command. Voices in the background. Calmer, trained, not surprised by crisis. "Get the security team on this call. Trace the location. Now." Emily's eyes fluttered closed. Her last thought was a mix of fear and relief. Someone knew, someone had heard, someone was coming, and far away, in a control room that had quietly monitored her number for years without interfering, Catherine Hawthorne was already mobilizing the power Emily had tried to leave behind. Emily woke with a gasp. Her eyes flew open, heart racing, breath sharp and frantic. For a second, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her was unfamiliar, white, high, decorated with soft recessed lights. The sheets beneath her felt too smooth, too clean, too expensive to belong to any place she could afford. Then she heard it. "Emily?" A woman's voice, soft, trembling, afraid. Emily turned her head slowly. Her mother, Catherine Hawthorne, elegant, poised, always perfectly composed, sat at her side. But today her mother didn't look composed at all. Her eyes were wet, her hair slightly undone, her expression raw with fear and guilt. Emily's father, Charles Hawthorne, stood behind her mother, a tall man with a commanding presence and calm authority. His clothes were immaculate, but his face was tight with worry in a way she had never seen growing up. Emily stared at them, confusion swirling through her mind. "Mom? Dad?" Her mother reached forward, taking Emily's cold hand in her warm grip. "Oh, sweetheart. Finally. You're awake." Emily tried to sit up, but her body ached everywhere. Her mother pressed gently on her shoulder. "Don't push yourself. You're safe. You're in a private hospital suite. The baby is still okay. You collapsed from malnutrition and exhaustion. Private suite, perfect linens, silent machines, security outside the door." This was Hawthorne money. Money she had refused for years. Emily blinked through the fog in her mind. "How did you find me?" Her father answered, voice steady but soft. "Your phone answered by accident. We heard you collapse. Our security team traced the call and sent medics immediately. You've been here since last night." Emily swallowed. "I didn't want to worry you." Her mother gave a choked laugh, brushing tears from her cheek. "You could never bother us, but you scared us, Emily. You scared us so much." The intensity of her parents' presence began to soften as Emily processed everything. She looked around the room, flowers, medical staff on standby, her personal nurse outside the door. These people had been waiting for her. Her father pulled a chair closer. "We respected your choice to build your own life," he said. "You asked us to stop calling. You changed your name. We tried not to interfere, but we kept a quiet safety net. Just enough to find you if something ever went very wrong." Emily froze. "You watched me," she whispered. "Only from a distance," her mother said softly. "No cameras, no spies in your apartment, just your phone number, your city, and a team instructed to stay back unless there was an emergency." Emily's chest tightened. All those years she thought she was completely alone. She wasn't. Not completely, but another thought slipped into her mind like a cold shadow. "Aaron, what about—" Emily's voice cracked before she could finish. Her mother's expression changed instantly. The softness vanished, replaced by a cold, razor-sharp fury. "We know." Her father reached into his coat pocket and placed a tablet on Emily's lap. "You deserve to see what he has been doing." Emily hesitated. Her hands trembled as she tapped the screen. The first photo appeared. Her stomach dropped. Aaron, at a restaurant, Sabrina Hayes on his lap, her arm draped over his shoulders, his face close to hers, laughing, relaxed, comfortable, as if he belonged there, as if he hadn't abandoned Emily, as if he wasn't married, as if he didn't have a baby coming any day. Emily's vision blurred. She blinked hard, but the images stayed. More photos came. Him at Dalton's private club, him leaning close to Sabrina, him leaving with her in a luxury car. Some images were old, taken weeks ago. Others were from just days before he walked out with his suitcase. "Once we got the call from your phone," her father said quietly, I told our investigator to pull every piece of data he already had and to dig deeper. We had looked into Aaron lightly when you first married him, just for your safety, but we never found anything we could use. Now we have more than enough." Her mother's hand tightened on her arm. "He left you starving while he pretended to be a single man." Emily lowered the tablet slowly, her heart heavy. Her father's voice dropped into a tone she remembered from years of business negotiations. Calm, lethal, final. "He will face consequences. He will understand who he chose to underestimate." Emily felt a tremor in her chest. Not fear, something else, something awakening. Her mother leaned in close, her voice steady but furious. "We'll handle him, but first, let's get you justice." Emily closed her eyes for a moment, letting the words sink deep into her bones. Justice. After everything she had endured, after being abandoned in her most vulnerable moment. Slowly she exhaled. When she opened her eyes again, something had changed inside her. Her father tapped the tablet again. "There's more you need to see." Emily looked down. Another file was opening. Messages, receipts, location logs, bank transfers. Evidence. Evidence that would shake her world and Aaron's. And far beyond the hospital walls, in boardrooms and offices where Leonard Dalton once felt untouchable, the name Hawthorne was about to force open doors he thought would never turn against him. The conference room door burst open, making Emily flinch even from her hospital bed. 3 men in dark suits carrying thick folders and digital tablets entered with a level of urgency she had only ever seen in emergency rooms or crisis meetings on the news. Her father followed behind them, his expression sharp. No longer the worried parent from before, but the powerful executive the world feared. Charles Hawthorne had activated his legal division, and when the Hawthornes moved, the world usually shook. "Everyone, start," he said. The men spread documents across the table near the foot of Emily's bed. Screens lit up, files opened. Evidence spilled out like a silent storm. Emily's heart raced. She felt intensity fill the room like electricity. One man stepped closer and introduced himself. "Mrs. Parker, I'm Daniel Reese, head investigator for Hawthorne Legal." His tone was respectful but firm. "We're going to walk you through everything we've uncovered so far. You can stop us anytime." Daniel placed the first stack of papers in front of her. Bank statements, withdrawals she never approved, transfers to restaurants she never visited, charges made on nights Aaron claimed to be working late. Emily blinked slowly, absorbing each detail. The numbers blurred for a moment, then sharpened. Her father whispered, "Take your time, but know that we are here now. You're not facing this alone anymore." The tension eased slightly inside her. For a moment, Emily let herself breathe, but only for a moment. Daniel slid over a tablet. "Next, we have digital evidence. We also extracted data from the company phone your husband left at the apartment," he added. "Its messages and call logs confirmed his late-night meetings with Dalton Circle and his pattern of ignoring you while he was out." The screen showed footage from the security cameras in her apartment building's hallway, footage the Hawthorne team had legally obtained from the building management. Emily watched in silence as Aaron slipped in and out at odd hours, sometimes alone, sometimes clearly tipsy, sometimes returning in clothes that didn't match the time he said he left. Her stomach twisted. Her mother placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "He was living a double life, sweetheart, and he wasn't even careful." Emily swallowed hard. "I didn't know. I didn't want to think." Daniel shook his head. "You weren't supposed to know. That's how manipulation works." One of the other investigators stepped forward. "Mrs. Parker, there's more. Your husband also accessed a loan without your consent. He forged your digital signature using your full name and copied handwriting." Emily felt the air leave her lungs. "He forged my name?" The man nodded grimly. "Yes, we have copies of the application, plus metadata from the financial institution. The funds went into an account he opened recently under just his name." Her father clenched his jaw. "Corporate misconduct, abuse of power, fraud, all tied to Dalton Circle." Daniel tapped another file. "Your father's company specializes in exposing corporate offenders. What Aaron did is illegal, but what Dalton did is worse. We recovered text messages between them." Emily stared at the growing mountain of evidence. It felt surreal, like she was watching a documentary about someone else's life. She lifted her hand, fingers trembling, and whispered, "Don't destroy him. Let him destroy himself." The room went silent. Her father met her eyes, the eyes of the daughter he had once struggled to understand, and nodded with solemn respect. "Then we will proceed your way. Quiet, precise, controlled." Emily looked at her mother, who squeezed her hand gently. "We'll follow your lead." The intensity softened as the room shifted into reflection. Emily's mind drifted back to the earliest days with Aaron, the man who had once held her during thunderstorms, who had whispered promises about a simple, loving future. She had been blind to the cracks forming in him, blind to the insecurity that grew every time he looked at men with more power, more money, more life than he thought he had. She remembered how he used to trace circles on her hand before falling asleep, how he had told her he wanted to be her safe place. But instead, she had become the stepping stone he stood on to climb towards someone else's world. Emily exhaled slowly. "We'll gather everything, every document, every message, every lie." Daniel nodded. "We already are." He tapped his folder. "And we found something today that changes everything." Emily looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" He opened a file filled with scanned pages, legal documents with familiar handwriting. "Aaron signed contracts under Dalton's pressure," Daniel said, "contracts that put him in direct violation of multiple laws. Dalton used him as the front man for certain funds. If those funds are investigated, and they will be, Aaron's name is on everything." Emily's eyes widened slightly. "He didn't read the fine print," the investigator continued. "Dalton tricked him, used him, and now we can use this in court and publicly. Dalton's empire will crack from the inside." Emily's heart thudded. Her father crossed his arms slowly, voice deep. "Dalton thought he could manipulate your husband, but he never imagined Aaron would lead us straight to him." Daniel hesitated for a beat, then turned another page. "There's one more document we found, forged, hidden, dangerous." Emily's breath caught. "Dangerous how?" Daniel slid the final page toward her. It was a spousal consent form, her name printed neatly on the line, her signature faked beneath it. The form attempted to list Aaron as co-beneficiary to any future inheritance that might come from family trusts, even though her trust had been locked for years. "He doesn't understand how your trust is structured," Daniel said quietly. He clearly suspected there might be some inheritance or family money you were hiding from him, but he had no idea of its real size or conditions. "This form is legally useless, but it proves intent. He was willing to use your identity to reach whatever he thought you had." Emily felt a cold ripple travel through her body. Whatever they were about to show the world would change not just Aaron's life, but Dalton's as well. And long after she left this hospital, what happened in the courtroom could follow Aaron for the rest of his days. Weeks later, the courtroom felt like it might explode. Voices clashed in the air, reporters murmuring, chairs sliding, spectators whispering like they were watching the climax of a drama come to life. The tension was so sharp it stung. Security guards lined the walls. Cameras flashed. Once the press learned that the Hawthorne family was backing a case against businessman Leonard Dalton and an ex-employee, the room became a storm. Every eye was fixed on one man, Aaron Parker. His shirt clung to him with sweat. His breathing was fast and uneven. His hands shook so badly that he struggled to keep them still on the defense table. For weeks he had been riding high, living with his boss, chasing status, pretending to be powerful. Now, under the unforgiving lights of the courtroom, he looked small, lost, exposed. The judge banged the gavel. "Court is now in session." Aaron flinched. Across the room, Emily entered through the side door, calm, composed, elegant in a simple dress. Her belly was smaller now. She had given birth days earlier under her family's protection. Her mother pushed the stroller behind her, their newborn son sleeping peacefully. A wave of whispers spread. "She looks so strong. Is that her baby? He abandoned her while she was pregnant, right? The Hawthorns are here. This is serious." Emily took her seat without looking at Aaron. Her expression was steady, serene. It wasn't anger that filled her presence. It was dignity, quiet, unbroken strength, and that terrified Aaron more than rage ever could. The judge turned toward the attorneys. Today we are hearing the petition for divorce, custody arrangements, and presenting preliminary evidence related to alleged financial misconduct and identity fraud. We will review evidence submitted by the Hawthorne legal team. Daniel Reese, the lead investigator, stepped forward. Calm, precise, deadly. He clicked the first slide. Hospital records. The courtroom gasped. The screen displayed medical notes in bold. Patient severely malnourished, signs of dehydration, pregnancy at risk, emergency intervention required. Emily kept her gaze forward. Her mother squeezed her shoulder gently. Aaron's face turned pale. Next slide. Financial statements. The documents clearly showed that Aaron drained joint accounts, withdrew funds without permission, and used money meant for groceries to wine and dine his boss and Sabrina. The judge frowned. Mr. Parker, do you deny any of this? Aaron swallowed hard. I was under pressure. I thought I could fix it later. I didn't realize, but his voice broke under the weight of his own choices. More evidence appeared. Security footage from the apartment building hallway, Aaron entering at 2 a.m., clothes disheveled, receipts for luxury meals, hotel records booked under business travel, screenshots of messages between Sabrina and Aaron, flirtatious, bold, shameless. Aaron squeezed his eyes shut. It wasn't what it looks like. I was just... The judge cut him off. Save it for your attorney. Daniel clicked again. Loan documents appeared, forms showing a loan taken in Emily's name, approved with a forged digital signature. And this, Daniel said calmly, is the loan Mrs. Parker never consented to. Her signature has been confirmed as forged. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Lastly, he put up the spousal consent form. This document tried to list Mr. Parker as co-beneficiary to an inheritance he incorrectly believed Mrs. Parker still controlled. Again, the signature is forged, legally worthless but revealing. The judge's expression hardened. Mr. Parker, your actions show a pattern of deception and financial abuse toward your wife, but the worst was still to come. The judge nodded to the bailiff. Bring in Mr. Dalton. Aaron's head jerked up. His boss, Leonard Dalton, entered the courtroom escorted by 2 officers. His expression was sour, irritated, but he kept his composure. He had been subpoenaed after Hawthorne investigators uncovered financial crimes, linking him to shell accounts and illegal transfers. Dalton took the stand. Mr. Dalton, Daniel began, did you pressure Aaron Parker to distance himself from his pregnant wife? Dalton shifted, jaw tight. I advised him to focus on his career. Did you encourage him to abandon his home to live closer to you? A pause. Dalton's eyes flicked to Aaron, cold, emotionless. Aaron stared back with a mixture of desperation and betrayal. Yes, Dalton said finally. He wanted advancement. I told him he couldn't rise with distractions. Gasps echoed. Emily closed her eyes briefly, steadying her breath. Her father leaned closer. This is the truth coming to light, Emily. Let it happen. Dalton continued. He told me he was willing to sacrifice anything, even his marriage. Aaron's head snapped toward him. What? You said? Dalton ignored him completely. The judge slammed the gavel. Order. Daniel stepped back. Your Honor, we rest our case for today. The courtroom fell into thick silence. Aaron trembled in his seat, his life falling apart piece by piece. The mistress he chased wasn't here. Her lawyer had kept her far away. His boss had thrown him under the bus. The world he wanted to join had spit him out without hesitation. Meanwhile, Emily sat with calm grace, her breathing slow, her posture steady. She looked like the very image of strength, of a woman who had risen above betrayal with dignity instead of rage. The judge turned toward her. His voice softened. Mrs. Parker, he said, before I finalize the dissolution of this marriage, grant you full custody, and issue recommendations for further criminal proceedings, do you wish to say anything? Energy rippled through the room. Aaron's eyes widened. He needed her. He needed her to defend him, to say something that would save him, to soften the verdict. Emily stood slowly. She turned to face him. Her gaze met his, a quiet storm, a depth he had never bothered to understand. Her lips parted as if she would speak, but she said nothing. Silence, a silence heavier than any accusation, a silence that changed everything. The judge watched her, waiting, and for the first time Aaron realized heartbreak didn't always scream. Sometimes it looked like peace, sometimes it looked like goodbye. Emily inhaled slowly, and the courtroom leaned forward as if the world had stopped to hear her next breath. Aaron burst out of the courthouse doors as if his lungs were collapsing. "Emily! Emily, wait! Please!" His voice cracked with panic, desperation, and a grief he had never prepared for. People in the courthouse entrance turned to stare. Some whispered. Others shook their heads. Cameras flashed, catching every broken step he took as he stumbled toward the woman he once vowed to protect. Emily stood at the bottom of the courthouse steps, calm as morning light. She held her newborn son against her chest, his small head tucked under her chin. Her mother stood beside her, one hand on the stroller, her father behind her like a silent wall of support. The judge had just granted Emily full custody and put strict conditions on any possible future contact Aaron might have with the child. Conditions based on therapy, restitution, and proven change. A restraining order protected her for now. Emily didn't turn when Aaron shouted again. "You were supposed to wait for me," he cried, stumbling down the steps. "I was doing this for us." Emily stopped walking. Slowly she turned around. The baby slept peacefully in her arms. Her eyes were, however, calm, clear, and unshakable, held no softness for Aaron anymore. Only truth. "No," she said gently. "You did it for you." Aaron froze, tears pooling. "Emily, I made mistakes, but I can fix this. I'll change. I'll get help. You already made your choice," she said softly, "and now you get to keep everything you chose." Her words hit him harder than the judge's rulings, harder than Dalton's betrayal, harder than losing his job, his reputation, and his freedom to move as he pleased. Aaron took 2 steps closer before Charles Hawthorne stepped forward, his presence alone stopping Aaron in place. "You will not approach my daughter," he said calmly, power humming beneath every word. Aaron's breath shook. "Please, I just need to hold my son. Just once." Catherine stepped closer, her gaze colder than winter. "You lost that right long before today. The court made its decision based on your actions. You don't get to erase what you did by crying on the steps." Aaron broke. The weight of it all hit him at once. His legs trembled. He fell to his knees on the courthouse steps. Emily watched him quietly. Not with hate, not with anger, just truth. "You didn't lose us today," she said gently. "You lost us the moment you walked out and left me to starve while carrying your child." Aaron covered his face with his hands as sobs tore out of him. The photographer nearby captured the moment. A man ruined not by enemies, but by his own choices. Emily inhaled slowly, shifted her newborn gently, and turned away. Her mother reached for her arm. "Come home, sweetheart." Emily nodded. For the first time since she left the Hawthorne estate years ago, the word home didn't feel like a cage. It felt like peace. It felt like safety. It felt like beginning again. A sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb, doors opened by uniformed drivers who bowed slightly out of respect. Aaron's head snapped up when he heard the door open. "No, Emily, please." His voice was barely a whisper now. "Don't leave me. Don't take him away." Emily paused at the open car door. She looked back one last time. "You left yourself," she said quietly. "All I'm doing now is finally walking away." She stepped into the limousine. Her parents followed, her mother carrying the diaper bag, her father giving Aaron one last look that made his blood run cold. As the door closed gently behind Emily, Catherine leaned closer to her daughter, her voice soft but sharp. "That man never knew who our daughter really was." Emily looked out the window, calm and steady. "He never cared to know," she whispered. The chauffeur closed the final door. The limousine pulled away from the courthouse, leaving Aaron on his knees, tears staining the concrete, watching the life he destroyed disappear through tinted glass. He would remember this day forever, not as the day he was punished, but as the day he finally understood the price of choosing ambition over love. The limousine glided down the street, carrying Emily into a new life, stronger, wiser, and finally free. The baby stirred against her chest, letting out a tiny sound. Emily smiled softly. A new chapter had begun. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.